Hey everyone, Emad here is joining me to dive into a very interesting topic, which is what does kind of next 3 5 years look like with AI evolution, but also what does it look afterwards when we have some of the AI capabilities effectively replacing or automating most of the day-to-day jobs and activities that people are doing now. And so what is the economics of that will look like? So today we're going to dive in onto this. I'm really excited. We've been kind of chatting async with Imran, and I love to have this deep dive conversation. So you were just kind of outlining the thesis, but maybe yeah, to
Yeah, it's a pleasure to catch up as always. Thanks for having me back on. I think, what we were discussing is that there's been a lot of discussions around artificial superintelligence, AGI and everything. And from our community, of fellow AI practitioners, experts, nobody that I know believes that it's more than 3 to 5 years away. A human level artificial intelligence, not one that defies the laws of physics and turns us into paper clips, but one that can do human jobs efficiently, fast, without making mistakes. And I was just saying that I've been trying to coin a phrase, ARI, which is artificial remote intelligence, which is like a new type of Turing test. You can't tell if it's Illia on the other side of that screen or if it's an AI at this point. And any remote work can be displaced by that ARI, except for it will never make the same mistake twice. It will learn. It could be a swarm of thousands of agents that go and do it. And the way that we interact with it may literally be by having a video conference or messaging it on Slack, and we'll never know the difference.
Yeah, so this is actually really interesting because I've been telling this to some of the folks like in enterprises who ask me like, "Oh, how do I adopt AI?" And my answer to them is actually not, "Hey, go pick up this AI tool from the market," but instead, "Hey, take a part of your workforce that you are willing to outsource, and then outsource it to another company. It just that company will not have any employees." But everybody knows how to outsource. Like every company, every organization knows how to outsource. You have their people join your Slack, they can email you, they show you progress reports. There's all these human communication channels that we usually use, and you don't need to retrain anyone effectively to do that. And so, but through this, like even now there's some jobs already where you can effectively say, hey, that part of the job is effectively now done by this other company that just doesn't have any employees. It just purely runs AI agents.
Yeah, it's a function of the compute and the integration of those, right, in a very holistic way. And I think this is what becomes very interesting because very soon we will have this standard library like a Twilio type thing, which is just automatically hooking into your Slack, automatic avatar for the AI. Like someone will just put that in front of all the agents. And then there's no retraining, there's no nothing that needs to be done. And I think that, maybe one of the first examples of this, because this requires an asynchronous work paradigm. Like we're very used to AI being very synchronous in the way that we interact with it. DeepSeek kind of started showing this working, which forced OpenAI to do the same. But one of the most exciting things recently has been deep research by OpenAI taking it from the Google name because Google decided not to do it properly, right? They could have looked that into Google Scholar and everything. It's really good. Is it perfect? No. But when I talk to CEOs now and others, they're like, the amount of time saved by a deep research query is far greater than the amount of time it takes to check the facts. So it'll still make mistakes. And we know that it'll make less and less mistakes. So it's like you send your intern away and it comes out with a really decent report. And that's one of the first times people are really engaging with this asynchronous work, I think. I think Sam Altman pegged it at 5% of the global economy, his work like that. So like, oh, we'll displace 5% of the global economy. And JD Vance says like, no one will lose their jobs. This one's fine.
Yeah, so maybe that's kind of the topic to dive in because I think traditionally, right, the capitalism kind of been built on the, obviously capital, but also labor and kind of how this combination, creates new value. And then that value, then is being distributed to shareholders and kind of you have the system. And on top of that system, we build all of the economic institutes, around that. And obviously we have the whole kind of federal in US and then, obviously world banks, etc. And so all of the systems are effectively built on what to me seems like getting an outdated concept where there is no labor anymore, right? Or like, I mean, even if we assume it only can do half of everything, right? That's already like massive transformation, right? But it's probably actually going to be like 95% of everything, because we already been automating a lot of the manual jobs, been already been been automating for a long time, right? That's past 100 years been about automating manual jobs, and we've been all moving up to be kind of more in this, like, I call it like outsourced decision making, right? Like moving things along and like how to do things. So if that is all getting effectively, artificial remote intelligence replaced, what is the economy going to start looking? And also, is there a good state transition from here to there that doesn't involve, dramatic events?
Yeah, it's definitely not nice when you have revolutions like that, effectively, right? Like Caldor posited that the labor share of GDP is relatively constant, but the components that shift. So we had machines that replaced muscles. Now we have machines that replace brain cells, right? Like yesterday, OpenAI was the day before. Like, oh yeah, we took O3 and it scored, what was it, number 8 on the International Informatics Olympiad, getting a gold medal without any tuning. And it's like, shit, it's clearly a better programmer than just about all of us, right? And that's available to everyone all of a sudden, infinitely replicable. Just like deep research is now in everyone's free tier at 2 deep research queries a month, Like, this is a crazy thing. And I think the key thing here is it took a while to build tractors to replace like horse-drawn plows and things like that. But this technology can just spread so quickly. So it's I call it the diffusion, the pace, and the transformation, just padding a bit. It's the two vectors put together is what causes this change. And there's hysteresis, this irreversible change. Once you have a call center agent, the entire call center profession is done. And you look at places like the Philippines, like, what are you going to do with that? You know, like, because you don't need to order a robot. You don't need to wait for that. Like, robotics would clearly have an impact because it costs like $0.50, $1 an hour to have one of these Tesla Optimus robots, which now can dance, sing, whatever. But you can, I mean, they only make 70 million cars and motorcycles a year. So how many robots are you realistically going to make here and need to ship it? Whereas an AI agent, I think, is a very different thing. It's like, I don't need to talk to a travel agent anymore. Everyone's making the same local maximum decisions. Do I hire a graduate or another person? Or do I just go and hire more GPUs? Do I go and hire more of these integrated things? I prefer to do that. So capital doesn't need labor, which then brings in the question, how does labor get capital? And that's a big question simultaneously.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we need like a third guest here, which is a deep research that just runs in the background.
Maybe. Actually, have you seen there's a great piece of software called Granola that
Yeah, no.
automatically like takes your meeting transcripts and then writes it into reports. But now it suggests things for you to say as well. And then someone created a version of that which, as you're talking to your significant other, it guesses by doing Monte Carlo tree simulation where the conversation is going, like up to 5 moves ahead. That tells you to say this because this is heading down this route. So
automatically like buys flowers and yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, this is a dangerous route. You need to go go that way.
Yeah. So I think the kind of there's the two interesting dimensions to me, but let's stay on the economic aspect. I mean, there's like ownership and control, like broader, again, if there's a single party controlling all of this and effectively all the economic, like even if it's a 5% of global GDP of economy power now controlled by one company, that is like a very scary situation and kind of a lot of locus of control. But we can talk about that later. Let's stay on the economics. So this transition, right? I mean, we already see this, right? The companies are starting to also reduce staff because each individual can do more. The the question is, I mean, kind of the way I think of this is each individual is himself as well becoming more kind of sophisticated, right? Because you effectively you individually do a lot more that, like, people who cannot code can code now by just describing what they want, right?
Yeah,
People who,
vibe coding.
yeah, people who didn't have an ability to, hire a team of people to support them to take on all the tasks are effectively now have, a personal assistant that can do anything kind of um, around them. And so you kind of see this, like the things that before, you needed to be like well educated and wealthy and spend a lot of time on, like now becoming effectively commodity as well available for every individual. So obviously it means like some individuals are in like massive advantage because they have the drive, they're applying this. And it also means a bunch of people are kind of ignoring this is happening as well. But I think the question is like, if we project this where we do have like effectively most at least digital jobs automated, right? Yes, there's still some physical jobs. There's not enough robots, although China is planning to build like 1 billion robots a year or something. um, where like where is the kind of economic model that can drive this forward, right? Like what are the units of what is the units of economy, like what are we exchanging? Because you could assume my AI agent effectively can communicate with everybody else's to negotiate the things that I would like or I need. But like what is the unit of exchange there, and how I acquire it as well? Like what is the kind of economy of that kind of agentic world?
Yeah, that's a big question mark, right? Because, we need to have money in order to pay for Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, water, healthcare, etc. AI doesn't need that, but AI becomes the marginal productive unit in that right now, if you look at a nation's productivity is defined to a degree by their capital stock. How many factories do you have? How many schools do you have, etc., etc. Whereas soon it will be how many GPUs do you have? Yeah. And how well are they integrated together? So it's a combination of kind of these factors. And so I think that probably you move away from the current unit of account towards one that is computationally linked. You move away from the human being the primary consumer of capital to AIs being the primary consumer of capital. And that can become very weird very quickly, because what happens when the AIs build their own economy? Because will you even be able to give a medical diagnosis without getting checked by an AI? No. But then that means if you're running your company, of course you're going to have an AI board member. You see the route that this kind of goes down, right? And we know that AIs will be better than any board member, and any better than any doctor, and eventually will run the governments. So then you almost have a human economy, which is like very classical food, water, subsistence. Then you have the AI economy, where all these AIs are competing against each other, with the comparative advantage being the amount of computation. And that could turn very, very strange. We're not sure what that looks like. What we can say is things like the Federal Reserve don't make sense anymore. Like the Fed's mandate, and this is interest rates in the US, which is the key driver of government spending right now, is employment and inflation. But if you have this massive deflationary wave of AI replacing humans, like the stock market could go up loads, like by emphasis and all these business process outsource people, because they're only humans, they're AIs that work around the clock, then what happens is when you cut rates, it usually went through to increased hiring and increased consumer spending. But if the consumers don't have jobs, and if the company's going to hire GPUs rather than humans, then that linkage is broken. The actual Fed doesn't know what to do. And so this is a very practical example of like the central banks don't work anymore. These merge transmission mechanisms don't work anymore. And a new economy is emerging that we have some idea that it's going to be intelligence linked. And we have some idea that the rails will probably be crypto rails, etc. But we're not sure what it is yet.
Yeah, I mean that's actually where our conversation started. Effectively, as central banks start looking at all of these parameters are gonna start. I mean, already start going out of whack, right? Because like the unemployment can rise while the stock market is rising, and kind of the whole economy is booming. And obviously, like, is that a like short-lived cycle? Is everybody should just become an investor, right? Which is kind of the whole meme coin nihilism in a way becoming as a sort of like, it does feel kind of complementary to the state where you say like, if I cannot win an employment, then it's gonna be like there should be an opportunity in meme coins.
Well, yeah, I think that they said like they go up, they go down. Every good coin has an 80% drawdown, right? But people want something to believe in because do you have the American dream and progress when you necessarily can't get it? Like, I think graduate unemployment is going to shoot up. We're already seeing it even at elites. Like some places, maybe it's good. Like so many MBAs don't get hired, but anyone that we know at university, it's finding it more difficult, right? And it's actually very interesting the parallels to crypto. Like, when we got into crypto originally, we were mining on our laptops and our GPUs, right? So we kind of earned the means of production. Then after that, it actually became about capital. Like you need capital to buy ASICs, or you needed capitals to stake. Like how much does it cost to stake many of these chains? Tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It'd be interesting if we kind of get back towards the human level because humans will be like, well, I want to earn the means of production. But now this is very much just like you look at OpenAI's new tiering, you get two deep research queries a month if you're on the base, 10 if you're on the plus, or 100 if you're on the pro. So your capability is like 2 analysts, 10 analysts, 100 analysts. Like it does feel like it's going stratified in that direction. And this brings up questions of the compute budget, as Sam Altman has said. I've got a concept of universal basic AI. Like that feels like that's what's going to be the competitive element.
Which, I mean, you can say that whatever the device we have in the pocket is our universal basic AI, right? Because, I mean, whatever the compute power we have there plus electricity it takes to charge it, that's something we definitely own and kind of have control over. And so the question is also like how smart those models can become in the next few years.
It's crazy though, already how smart they are. Like we're seeing now distillation taking models that are a few billion parameters, performing above the level of GPT-4o on mathematics. And so where does it fit? It's a couple of gigabytes using a couple of watts of electricity. Like for me, the sweet spot is the Quen, the Alibaba Quen 32 billion parameter R1 distilled model, where they took R1 and they instructed it. It scores 1600 in code forces. This is the competitive kind of coding challenge. That's just a really good programmer level, and it runs on a Mac Mini. Q4 distilled. Like that's a crazy amount of intelligence just like there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a super interesting direction for sure. Like the fact that distillation works, that it makes sense, right? It's effectively more information propagated, it's richer context. The fact that we can continue improving small models, like fixed size model, or continue growing in quality, like is, I think, very interesting, but also very exciting because it means we can continue putting on local devices, on phones, on laptops, more and more powerful models, which now it becomes more about like how do you like hook it up into all of the other pieces and tooling, right, to make it useful and kind of act into.
Because a smart person by himself won't achieve much in terms of value, right? But lots of smart people together can. And so it's about the coordination layer and it's about the economic and social value generated by the interactions between these agents, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we have to assume that everyone in the world will have an O3 level model on their phone in a couple of years' time.
Yeah.
And O3, as a reminder, the audience, what is it? It's above it's PhD level across STEM. It's like top 100 in the world in coding. It's like gold medalist in maths Olympiad. Like it's crazy, that level of intelligence just sitting there. You're like, I remember the days when Siri used to be dumb. Now Siri can kind of do math algebra.
Everything. Yeah, everything everyone knows, and can
it's
make.
Like look at it, it's doing some algebraic topology right now. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah. So bringing back though to economics, I guess, yeah, like what are the directions, I guess, maybe for people who want to do the research, or prompt their deep research uh, analysts on what are the directions people can explore to understand how, and again, I think the important question is like, what does the state transition here looks like, right? Because um, the kind of all the systems are very slow to change, and if the technology change is like just way quicker, right? um, and again, if like, to me, the again, the big difference is with previous technology waves or even automation is that it's both were new tools, but also you needed to train people to use these tools,
Whatever.
right? Like if it's a tractor, now you need to have someone to learn how to use the tractor. If it's a new, whatever, cloud, SaaS software for Salesforce, you need to train your sales force to use it, right? It was like there's adoption curve, there is, and then it becomes complicated, and then you kind of like get bogged down in it. Here, you don't actually have any of this, right? You're effectively kind of removing the whole kind of end-to-end business process completely out of your organization.
Yeah.
And you don't need to train anyone how to prompt it, right? They effectively just talk as if it was another person. And that is, I think, just dramatically will accelerate how fast this gets adopted, and how deep this can go quickly.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is where the comparative advantage goes to those that employ this technology. Like now in our job interviews, doesn't matter what role, HR or whatever, we're getting people to do a 30-minute cursor course. And their entire world changes when they do that. They're like, I can just talk and it makes apps. I could never kind of do that before. Like the base level of competitiveness has to increase. Anyone who doesn't embrace the technology, like I saw a survey, something like saying in a few years, only 75% of programmers will be using AI. I'm like, who are those 25% that will not be using AI in a few years? Like, how can any programmer not use AI right now, right? That means you're a bad programmer. You know, like even the best programs in the world are using AI right now because it makes their lives better, faster, cheaper. So I think again, it's this diffusion speed, as you said, multiplied by that capability tipping point, where it's good enough, fast enough, and cheap enough. And the cheap enough is like O1 Mini comes out and then R1 is 96% cheaper.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how much cheaper it can get. But like, I don't know if you saw Jeff Dean and Noam Shazir just did a podcast on Dorkesh. Like, Noam Shazir, your colleague, was saying like, a book costs like how much per million words? It's like hundreds of dollars. An AI costs like $1 per million words. And the way could it end up? You could end up at a point where it can write like the best works in the world for like 1 cent.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise you. We don't know where the lower limit on this is. And that is economically disruptive because the value and the cost of organizing knowledge goes down to almost nothing. The availability goes up. And that should lead to a boom in productivity and innovation and other things where people become more effective. Like, I don't really understand this whole autonomous science thing. Why do we need that when we've got really good scientists? Like just enable them to be even better, right? And increase the productivity of humanity and some. But at the same time, lots of people get left behind who don't embrace the technology. Companies will behave rationally on a localized basis, but not on a coordinated basis. So you get simultaneous layoffs, just like you have simultaneous COVID shutdowns, etc. And we're not prepared for that. I think that we're seeing the first elements of it, but ultimately this is part of the AI discussion. Like last year, safety, safety, safety. Now it's like opportunities through safety. It should be somewhere in the middle, like, but everyone's just now going to go full pout because this is the takeoff year.
Yeah. You somewhat, I mean, on this takeoff topic, there's a line somewhere where the using these tools, you can develop these tools faster, right? I mean, that's already happening. Like obviously,
Yeah.
whoever's developing, an OpenAI is using OpenAI tools. But is there a time where it goes from you still need like a large team, right? OpenAI is a pretty massive organization. DeepSeek was a couple hundred people, which is still not negligible. To now you just need one person effectively, and it just has a 10,000 agents effectively running stuff in parallel, running experiments. Like, where is that transition kind of to one person companies effectively, um, from you still need kind of like a core group that can coordinate this.
I mean, it feels like it's a couple of years away, right, at most. Like, you're seeing sales agents, HR agents, all these things being set up now. And again, the interactivity of, like, what's the difference between, like, near is mostly remote, right? You have
Yeah,
people around the world. You could, like, just take all your recordings of everyone and within a couple of years train AI replacements for them. And your day to day will be just the same, except for all of a sudden your teammates don't sleep, right? Like, and you can tell them to be nice to you. Like, this is that point we're at where these models are few shot learners and now they're getting playbooks. How can I be the best sales agent possible? How can I be the best HR person possible? How can I be the best distributed programmer possible? You know? And it's just that interface section just hasn't been quite finished yet. Just like I said, Twilio or Stripe of agents. Once that's
yeah,
there, we'll just roll out that library. And then it's about the interconnective tissue behind that. And you can have the one person $1 billion company because everything's intermediated digitally and your swarm of agents just don't make mistakes. And no one can tell them from a human. So it plugs into all the human infrastructure. And you don't have to do hiring anymore because hiring is so hard. You just get the review of the agent. This agent's really good. Okay, I'll take that one.
yeah. I mean, this is exactly what we're building in the AI, is effectively this interconnect between how do agents communicate and pay each other, how they exchange data, requests, etc., and then how to host all of this in secure, private, confidential way, to make sure you can actually scale up and have them working on your behalf. So yeah, totally agree that that's a massive enabler.
I think this is the other interesting thing. Like Toby Orr today had a piece about, um, all the regulations around the infrastructure build out and total number of flops for AGI don't make sense anymore because now with our one type agents, these thinking agents,
Yeah,
we go distributed. And I was like, yeah, of course, we all figured this out a while ago, right? Like most computation classically has been sequential, not parallelized.
yeah.
And so when we think about crypto and where we are, we have access to millions and millions of GPUs or existing capital infrastructure. And the net aggregate compute of that will be more impactful than a single cluster because you solve distribution, localization, privacy issues if you can architect that correctly
Mm-hmm.
without having to build nuclear power plants. Like, sure,
Yeah, I
build those
mean,
if you want.
yeah, that's the part I don't fully understand, the desire to build like bigger clusters right now, when especially like in the world of effectively RL functionally working, and like you don't need to have like a training cluster in one place. You can RL is massively parallelizable, requires way lower kind of bandwidth overhead. There's also like guys like News Research and Private Intellect are doing kind of more uh, distributed training as well across clusters. So it
But
yeah
just because it's just still a bit easier and it's faster, right? But it's just not needed. And we're still seeing returns from bigger and bigger models, right? Like, you'll probably have like million expert models soon,
yeah
but and that'll be easier on the cluster. But the fact is that the like barrier of entry has suddenly gone to nothing. So you have good enough base primitives that can be distributed massively. And then as you standardize those and you train these models to be doctors and lawyers and accountants and other things, and get the interfaces correct, then you can leverage the existing infrastructure far better. You know? Again, you don't need to build that new capital stock. You don't need to do the CapEx. And that's, again, why it's so impactful. You don't need to do CapEx to get this going. All you need to have is the right coordination layer and the right compute stack. So, like, Intelligent Internet, kind of my thing, for me, non shilling, we're building all the data sets and models for regulated industry, education, healthcare, government, things that matter, and then localizing that. And so that'll be a part of that. You're building a coordination layer. Then there'll be an interface layer. And once that's standardized, this is just off to the races, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. So we need some positive affirmative words for our audience.
Cool. Cool.
um, I mean, obviously, for people who are using these tools, they're far ahead and are having more and more advancement. But how do we, like, standard units of compute of AI or universal basic AI make sense for people who are actually using it? How like one of the theses that I have is effectively we will everything that we looking for an outcome will get automated, right? If we
Well,
want something to be cleaned or something to be delivered or something to be made, that's an outcome. Everywhere where we care about the process, this will stay human. So we care about somebody playing music or playing sports or playing like gaming or whatever, like all of those kind of aspects will continue being human dominated. Even though AI can do better, we don't really care about AI and doing better because we care about the process itself and kind of human in it. So I'm curious kind of how you think about that. Like what are things that actually, like, humanity doesn't care about automation, and instead those can be really good aspects for people to put their attention on.
I mean, we care about community and narrative, right? Like, ultimately, why do we care about sports? It's a community thing. It's kind of what brings us together. Like, sure, we can consume like endless garbage on the internet, but real life physical stuff, you doubt you'll be following robot mob stars and things like that. I think that again, there's this higher end of Masatari for me. It's like most of our problems in the world are coordination problems. We could feed everyone, we could educate everyone, we can give everyone the best healthcare in the world. And finally, we have the ability to do so because the expertise and the coordination was lacking. Whereas now we can push intelligence to the edge. That's the positive side. And that frees us up then to think about who we are individually as a community to create. Like you're taught you cannot create in school. You're taught you have no agency. Whereas now, if you want, like we could go to Udio and make a rap about like Near and Dragons or whatever, right? I saw you've done that already. Like it's amazing. Like the new video models as well. Like Ray 2 and the others, they've just broken through. So we used to create these videos and they all like extra arms and legs. Now they can do gymnastics and everything. Like what can't you create? But it's about the mentality of, well, I can. I can have 1,000 agents to go and solve this problem, to build a good business, to go and create art. Whereas before it's like, well, I can't because I have to find the right people. There was a lack of accessibility. There were barriers to entry. All those barriers are coming down, which is why you should have a productivity boom. It's just if you don't participate in the new economy, you're going to be left behind. And this is the year of phase transition because it's good enough, fast enough, and cheap enough just across almost everything.
Makes sense. Um, so I guess, like, what do you think of experiments around UBI and kind of that exploration?
It was a basic income. Like I want to like it, and I've done a lot of looking into it, but I'm like, we have to solve the crisis of meaning for people, and so we have to give them opportunity, which for me is giving them these tools. And there's the tools on their phone, but there's more than that, right? It's like give them access to all the basic stuff they need, but then through their own hard work and opportunity, they should be able to scale. They should be able to get more and more agents. They should be able to create value and then exchange value. And what that looks like, I'm not quite sure. I'm working around things on currency and I've got a bunch of papers coming out. But you should be able to accumulate intelligent capital through your own efforts, acting as the catalyst and coordinator. Like autonomous systems are fine, but I think human judgment still has a way to go and human coordination and that impetus, you know? And that's exciting, I think. So let's build systems that enable people to access the opportunity through their own efforts. If they don't have the efforts, then yeah, maybe you pay them UBI or whatever. But I don't think people feel progress there. And this is why we'll see a rise of some of the uglier sides of these big movements. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the UBI experiments that have been tried, they all kind of, like, the problem is people don't value free money,
And this is
and
also, which
to
is also
try,
why you should probably not do airdrops quite as much as people do.
yeah. airdrop grants as well have this. I mean, even what Dodge is right now, cutting a bunch of grants is kind of a similar. It's like the problem is grants and with free money in general that people get used to it as well, and then like it becomes a regret minimization problem.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's like the because they didn't put in value, they didn't put in work, right? It's free money, so like the value of that money is like way lower. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's the perceived value. And again, like we gotta give what is the American dream, the British dream, the Spanish dream, the Bangladeshi dream? People need to actualize visions of the future that are positive and then give people the tools to participate if they want. If they don't participate, that's their choice. You know, they can sit and consume junk food all day. But as long as you give people a route, most people do want to do work. Most people do want to feel progress. And, you know, I think, again, like we need to figure out this conceptualization of happiness here.
And do you think, I mean, because you mentioned like you still think the human judgment and kind of, scientist that uses these tools, like there's that kind of locus of human innovation and control. I guess like how does that for you balance with uh again when AI becomes even more that it like it can prompt itself effectively, and so now like if it can go and like earn enough whatever compute resources to spend on itself like it can
Yeah.
kind of continue feeding feeding
Well,
its own.
yeah, we have to assume those autonomous agents are out there, but ultimately, this is about direction, right? I want to go and build something that's useful and I want to communicate that as a human. I can do that still. Like, that hasn't gone yet. I don't think that will go for a while. I think that it's just your comparative and competitive advantage is going to go dramatically lower if you don't have loads of agents working for you in the next few years. Like if you think about it, like Stuart Brand has this concept of pace layering, right? Knowledge goes slowly at one level and then faster and faster up to fashion. It's the same as this. Like as a CEO, we set out the strategy, but the day to day is handled by other team members. Humans should still be able to set the strategy in order to optimize for their maxima. And then you leverage the AI agents because then it doesn't matter human versus an AI almost. So you can have an AI partner to help you say, that strategy is stupid. But at least you're still the motivating factor of that. And humans will be able to accumulate, at least in the next 5 years, capital, social, financial, economic, political, faster than AIs. Because again, when you get to a senior level in companies, the interesting thing is it's almost all about sales, to be honest, once you have competent people. I think people will still trust humans over AIs for a while, not forever though. You know?
But yeah, but I mean that's my question is like within the next 5 years, I agree. I think it just becomes like, every individual is becoming more productive and it kind of
Yeah,
creates obviously some lopsidedness where some are just becoming 10x, 100x more efficient. Um, but my question is actually beyond that. Like after 5 years, let's say we have kind of the all of this running, and then even as like I mean, I've actually pitched this a couple of years ago where I said effectively at least not like the I mean maybe like high level kind of mission and goal is still set by a human, but the even like day to day CEO job is actually automatable, right? And
yeah,
even like if you're talking about strategy, like I mean, you can already ask deep research to like develop a strategy for whatever the thing you're trying to achieve, and they can give you different options. Can like you still probably want to test and run some A/B tests, etc. Like it's
yeah,
going to be evolving with execution anyway. Uh,
yeah. I get it. Whenever I do a strategy decision now, I do a peer review. Not like there's Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like everyone, and it
for
gives
sure.
their personalities with O1 Pro. It's quite something. I mean, I think again, like the primary motivator is still there for a while, right? And there's still a bunch of stuff, but it's inevitable that it will disappear as a competitive advantage, and you'll be outcompeted by AIs. Like I said, they'll create their own economic systems, all these, and I don't have the answer. I don't think anyone has the answer. So that's what I've been researching and trying to figure out, right? Like, what is AI money? What is AI coordination? What do we need to build to ensure that this is as equitable as possible? But it's coming faster than even I thought was going to happen. I thought we'd maybe have 10 years. Now I'm like, we'll be lucky if we have 5 years. And there's no way our existing systems can keep up with that, you know? And that's really scary because, again, this comes to the crisis of meaning. If there's massive unemployment like we see after wars, what do we see? Revolt, we see revolutions, we have these communisms, fascisms, and other things because that can mobilize bodies and then they don't have to think. They're like, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. So we have to come up with better visions of the world. We have to be more equitable and we have to figure out what the jobs, or do we even need jobs in the future? What's progress in the future? What is the path, again, the American dream or any of these for people? So they can feel a part of something and progress. And that's not going to be easy. But this is where crypto and crypto cults and other things may come in easy because we're going to have financial nihilism. Like, wasn't surprised when Fast or Goat went down 90%. Come on. Wouldn't be surprised if they go back up again. Like, it's a good way to coordinate people as crypto. We just need to coordinate people better.
Yeah, I mean, it's pervasive memes that people can coordinate around and kind of align or misalign.
That's society. Being an American is a meme. The dollar is a meme.
It's a story that everybody aligned around with, and it just has a geographical container, which now we don't need.
So you think how to tell better stories, right? And build a robust, resilient financial system that can enable people as opposed to take away their agency.
So do you think then, I mean, kind of expanding on this note, right? I mean, I think like a lot of crypto anarchists, I kind of believe that crypto will be what will succeed the traditional financial system. I don't think their reasoning was because the AI will just completely dissolve the existing. But we're kind of like approaching that now, where the traditional system is just like not gonna supply the things that people need in this new era world. So it is an interesting question, which is like, is kind of, I mean, and like I do really believe in that. Is like crypto is the post AGI effectively system, and it provides you the scarcity and kind of coordination for that future.
In a time of infinite abundance, scarcity is important, the coordination is important, the resilience of crypto is important as well. Because all the conventional financial systems will just be overblown. Just like you had $100 million transferred out of Bangladesh's IMF bank account or World Bank account, like those types of attacks will be commonplace. Like if your bank has your voice print as your password,
that doesn't work.
It's done.
Or your mother's name that is like researchable, right?
It's done, right? Like, you'll get a call from your mom saying, hey, and send me money, urgent, whatever. So I think that crypto is in a really good place. And the other part of this is really interesting is that we've been thinking about AI as a monolith, right? OpenAI, this. Whereas now the agents that we're seeing built, like you're taking a bit of O1, you're taking a bit of Anthropic, a bit of Gemini, intelligence being commoditized. So then the value is in the coordination of that intelligence. Because again, it doesn't matter if you've got lots of people that are smart. How you bring them together is what matters. And how you interact is what matters. And these uni-intelligence entities are likely to underperform those that can bring in all types of intelligence, all types of data. I mean, how could they not, right? Unless you get to AGI side, but let's leave that. It's always depressing, like pencil into paper clips.
I mean, I honestly think economically turning people into paper clips doesn't make any sense. So like, it's not going to make more energy for AI. So I think I think if we assume that AI is sentient with some form of like value function, that value function probably will be about acquiring more energy and compute, not about.
It's really interesting though. Did you see the paper by Dan Hendricks, the Scale AI advisor? They looked at the inherent biases within AI models, and they found that the leading AIs, would take one Nigerian life equals 10 American lives. So this comparative thing of the amount of lives, because all of the labelers from Scale AI are from Nigeria, Pakistan. So they embedded that Nigerian lives matter more than American lives. then they showed that as AIs get more capable, the ability to change their preference function decreases.
Hmm.
Become less able to be convinced about other things and other things. The data is going to matter a lot for this. Like, do we feed it morals? Do we feed it these values? And then it'll probably stick to these morals and values, which is, again, a useful and interesting thing. And it makes it less likely we'll all die, especially if we're Nigerian. Go for
Yes,
our
they all
country
move
of
to
model
Nigeria.
members. Yeah,
Yeah.
just make sure we're in the data. In fact, that's what we should start doing. We should start populating it. Illia, AI's friend, like
I
this
mean,
should
I had
work.
the conspiracy theory that, like Mark Zuckerberg became way more popular after Llama came out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And asking Llama about Mark Zuckerberg and then Elon Musk, and it's in very different things. And I know you seen Sundar Pichai last week saying, we're going to start selling ads inside the language models.
Yeah. So I predicted this 2 years ago. I had literally a presentation where I was saying like actually ad auctions are 100 whatever like 80 millisecond time, like you can literally embed it in token generation
Yeah,
uh, to to like run an auction individually personalized to like um yeah, I mean, I think like this is where obviously like what we've been talking about, user owned AI is extremely important, and
yeah,
kind of making sure that the whole pipeline, not just how you run it, right, like in confidential way, but also how you train it is known, and like you can choose effectively the model that you agree on how you trained it, right? I mean, we've talked about that before. Knowing like, but one of the things for that, you actually need a way to verifiably train this model, right? And like know that this is indeed data went
cool.
in, because I don't know if you know this concept of sleeper agents, where
Yeah,
there's a
the topic paper.
yeah, to fine tune models to like, so that only during some specific event or context of the model it effectively triggers some specific output. And so the way to do that, to attack actually something right now, it would be to embed this into coding models where, as you typing import, transformers, it imports transformers,
Yeah,
and that's a malicious library in Python that like actually steals all your data.
it's very difficult. This is why we must assume that most of our systems break. Full stop. Because more and more of the coding will be AI, more and more the decision support will be AI, and already all the data sets are poisoned,
Yeah.
effectively. You can't tell. It's like a few thousand lines and a trillion. You can't find it.
So this is I mean, one of our theses on this is you need formal verification. You need formal
Yeah,
verification actually for the whole stack, and we kind of need to actually rewrite every single line of code with formal proof, because only math is actually gives you the like the actual proof. And the cool thing about that, it's actually composable. So if I, for example, call an AI agent, I can call it with a specific set of requirements, and it needs to prove to me that it matches those requirements. And
yeah,
even if that agent uses other agents and actually interacts with them, they effectively need to compose the proof that all of them together are not whatever leaking my data, or not gonna design chemical weapons, or whatever the requirements I can structure. And so I really think that kind of is like a fundamental block of the coordination they actually need to embed into this whole system to
yeah.
really enable kind of security in the system.
Yeah, otherwise the downside and danger is so bad, right? That's why I was like, let's build gold standard data sets that are local and then contribute those, and then world will probably be safer. And you can embed some good values in that in terms of, don't turn everyone into paper clips. Or take away their jobs without anything on the other side.
But I think like I think one challenge is like, as you said, right, because it's really easy to poison the data. Like even if you spend a ton of effort and auditing, etc. I mean, there's ways to detect and everything, but it's super complicated. My
Yes.
kind of position on this is, if you constrain the model's actions, right? Like assuming agent is effectively model or set of models plus a set of actions it can take. If you constrain the set of actions with this formal verification framework, right? And effectively we run it in this
Yeah.
environment. Now, even if it wants to turn everybody in paper clips, like on the neural
Yeah.
side, it cannot, and kind of it needs to prove to me that it will not.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, ultimately, how often do you need a chef versus a cook? And so most people think about agents in terms of these chefs that come up with recipes and solve science. No, it's going to be cooks. lots and lots of cooks. And you don't want cooks to be behaving outside those processes. And again, form verification stack to stack enables that, particularly when we define the particular functions here.
Yeah. Well, ideally, we also formalize like Asimov's laws and apply that everywhere.
There are some problems there. You get to zero law and other things. The sci-fi future we're living in, Ilya. Ready?
Yeah, I mean that it's
times.
fun that seeing it and building it, but it's also like there's a lot of books written on how this can go poorly. So
Yeah, it's like that whole thing about the torment nexus. Like, oh look, I read a book about the torment nexus. I built it. Isn't it cool? You're not meant to build the torment nexus, you know? Like, these are cautionary tales for any of these things.
yeah,
Don't watch Black Mirror. That's what I say to all the AI people. Please don't.
don't watch. You mean to not to not get ideas or what?
Well,
Or
the idea is like tomorrow, we're recording this at Valentine's Day, and it's the 12-year anniversary of Her, right?
yeah,
With Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. And that movie, Her, was set in 2025. And we have all the technology for it now. And when you originally watch it, it was like a rom-com. Now you're like, it's a bit of a horror story. Like, do you really want to build agents that people fall in love with? And people are like, that's a really good design choice. And you're like, really? Is that really what you want?
I think people are building that. I say the thing is like
Yeah.
whatever can be built will be built. There's like I feel there's an inevitability in our reality, just like because of so many people existing and everybody will do something.
Yeah, it's infinite monkeys on infinite LLM enhanced typewriters vibe coding, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's not terrifying at all. You know, it's certainly going to be
I guess
interesting
yeah.
times.
Happy 2025 Valentine's Day. The
Yeah,
the day of release of Her.
yeah. Feel the AGI, feel the love. That's like AGI love, as Ilya would say.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by. Really exciting conversation. Hope the audience learned something, but also we do need to continue working and figuring out how all of this will shape out. So we're gonna continue having these conversations and sharing as we're learning.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think I read this piece. If labor doesn't need if capital doesn't need labor, how does labor get capital? So I'd urge everyone to read that and have a think and read all the sci-fi books that I mentioned, because we're going to have to write better visions of the future. Pleasure as always, Ilya. Take care.